Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Jeremy and today I'm going to be talking about how I got $44,000 in credit card debt and how I got out of it in 2 years. This video will not only cover the story of how I got into that mess in the first place, but also the tips and strategies that I used to get out of that debt in 2 years time. Alright, story time. How I got 44K in debt. I had quit my job, I believe it was around 2017, 2016, and I wanted to start my own online business. I was tired of working in corporate America. I wanted to do the whole digital nomad, travel the world and all that good stuff. So I thought an online business would be the best way to go about it. And what ended up happening is I went through my savings to try to make that business work, and then I started putting money on my credit cards because I was actually, just to be completely frank, very desperate. I was investing in coaches and courses and Facebook ads because I did not want to go back to corporate America. The idea of being chained to a 9 to 5 really frightened me, so I wanted to make things work with my business. I kept spending money because I was hoping the next thing I spent money on would be my big break. And what ended up happening is after I finally had the courage to really look at my finances in the eye and to really look at how much my business was making, I just realized I had to go back to a job and I was already 44K in debt. Let's dive into the tips of how to get out of debt quickly, or as quickly as you can. There's two main buckets, I would say. The first bucket is primarily psychological. It's not just purely about practical tips to get out of debt, because everything that you did that got you in debt, for the most part, unless you're paying a lot of money on medical bills and other stuff, a lot of it came from your psychology. And the second aspect is just more of the practical aspects of how do you set your life up, how do you set your finances up to get out of debt. So let's go ahead and dive into the first bucket, which is psychological. The first part of your psychology that you should examine is what got you into debt in the first place. Again, this is very personal to you. Sometimes people spend a lot of money because it's retail therapy, they're very impulsive, but they need to buy things to feel better about themselves for one reason or the other. But really understand what got you to spend that much money and get into so much debt will really help you understand how you can change your psychology and thus change your behavior. The second part of psychology to get out of debt quickly is to really focus on getting out of debt. Now, when I was trying to get out of debt, I was also thinking well, if I don't use credit cards, I'm not going to get rewards points. If I don't use money and invest in the stock market, then I'm going to be paying money that's not going to be compounding in terms of the return. You should not be focused on everything else, the whole real estate investing, crypto and all this other stuff, because right now, your financial race that you're running, it's like running a race with weights tied to you. You're bleeding right now, you're being weighed down. Imagine if you're running a race. You want to be focused on how to run correctly or fix your form. If you have weights tied to you, the first thing to do is to stop the bleeding, is to let go of the weights. Then you can do more of the ancillary stuff like investing and all that good stuff. Alright, let's dive into the logistical systems, practical tips, all that good stuff of getting out of debt. The first thing you have to do is to have complete visibility of your finances. That means knowing how much money you're making, what your expenses are, how much debt you have, and what is the interest rate on your credit card debt or your debt that you have. And I know it's kind of convoluted because maybe you have multiple credit cards where you have debt on these credit cards and they have different interest rates. But it's very critical for you to know exactly where your money is coming in and going out, and what additional money you're being charged via the interest on the credit cards. You have to do this because if you don't know what the numbers are, you are literally using hope as a strategy to pay off debt. And that's not going to work. It's actually going to cost you more in the long run because, it's not going to be an effective strategy first and foremost. That means more interest, that means more debt, that means staying longer in this vicious cycle. You have to cut down your expenses. Otherwise, you will prolong being in this cycle of slavery to the credit card companies. I was going to say credit card machines. I was just watching The Matrix. Anyways, side note, the point being is you have to cut your expenses. There's no way around it. Now, I will say there is a tool called truebill.com, and I'll link it in the description below, where you can use that to see what your recurring subscriptions are. By seeing all the subscriptions that I was getting charged and I wasn't aware of, I was able to cut down on most of those subscriptions and save a lot of money. So Truebill is really great because, there's different tiers for seeing and managing your money. But even for the free account, as of the time I'm making this video, you can see what are your subscriptions that you have tied to your credit card and bank accounts, and then you can obviously easily cancel the ones that aren't really necessary. Okay, once you have visibility into your income, your expenses, and the debt that you have, as well as the interest rate on the debt, the key for you is to really set up a budget. Know exactly what expenses you have and budget it so you know exactly how much money you can contribute per week, per month, whatever your pay periods are, usually bi-weekly or monthly, how much money you're going to contribute back to paying back that debt. By the way, in terms of budgeting, a really good tool to use as well as personal capital. I use this tool to monitor my net worth, to monitor how many liabilities I have as well as expenses I have. But in this case, how it might benefit you is using the budgeting section of the tool. As you can see, over here you can connect your accounts, like your bank accounts, your credit card accounts, and all that good stuff. But if you go over to banking and go to budgeting, the good thing about this is you can really see how much you're spending in a set time period. So whether you want to set it on a time range that's specific to you, whether you want to set it for this month, last month, the past 90 days, I'm assuming if you're budgeting, you're probably going to be checking it at least once a week. Probably not once a month, but really whatever interval works for you. But you can use it to just really see how much you're spending. And it's pretty good because like you again have a aggregate view of all the transactions that you had, as well as see, are you keeping on track with your budget or are you going off your budget? And the great thing about personal capital too is that it'll take your transactions and automatically group them into different categories. So if you're kind of grouping your expenses into like, gas bills, electric bills, internet and utilities and all that good stuff, personal capital tends to automatically do that for you. It's not always 100% accurate, but it's pretty good overall. There will be a link in this video's description to getting a personal capital account, so check that out. And keep in mind, signing up is free. Getting a personal capital account is free. You're not going to be charged anything, so you'll be good to go. The first thing is to not spend money you don't have. Now this is, I know, very obvious. Everyone's going to be like, oh duh, wow, so revolutionary. Don't spend money you don't have. If you live by this simple rule, you'll start cutting down your debt really quickly. Now, if you're like me, where basically your spending was out of control, there is a method to make sure that you don't spend more than you have. It's called the envelope method, or I don't know if that's actually the term for it, but literally once I had my budget down, for example, if I knew how much I would give myself for gas money, food money, I forget everything else. I'm really bad at remembering things when filming a video. But anyways, once I knew exactly what my budget was in the different categories, I would literally have these envelopes that would basically contain the money for each of those different spending categories. So for example, if my gas budget for a week was $40, that envelope would literally contain $40. And the thing about the envelope method that worked for me is it's very tangible. I found that if I'm paying for things online, if I'm paying for things with a credit card, it doesn't really feel like money is leaving me or leaving my account because it's so easy to swipe the card or just click buy, online. But when you're having the cash envelope and you are literally seeing the money get depleted from your envelope, for me that made me way more conscious with spending because I really set a limit on myself. I'm only going to use these envelopes to pay for things as I go about my week. And the other thing is once that money's gone for the week, it's gone. I'm not going to be using my credit cards. So that really forced me to be very, very judicious with my spending. Dun-dun, dun-dun. Baby Yoda. So Baby Yoda and I would like to ask you, if you like this video, please like it. If you want to subscribe to this channel, please click that subscribe button. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions, please leave it down in the comments below. Baby Yoda and I would really love to hear from you all, and we really appreciate you viewing and watching this video. Another practical way to get out of debt more quickly is to destroy your credit cards. I'm not kidding. I'm just kidding. Well, partly. Okay. For me, again, having access to my credit cards was a really bad thing because I had a very high credit line. Meaning I could spend a lot of money on that credit card before, it's like you can't spend any more money on this credit card. And I literally had to cancel my credit cards. There's no way around it. Now, you may not have to go to this extreme that I did because my friend said you don't need to actually destroy your credit cards and cancel the credit card accounts. You can actually just give it to your parents or give it to a friend so you can't access it. Now, if this will work for you, go ahead and try it because I will say if you shut down a credit card account, it could affect your credit score. But if you know that your monkey brain or your lizard brain is very, very tricky and will spend money if there's even a sliver of opportunity to spend money through that credit card, then you might be better off canceling your credit card account so you can't spend money. But again, you may never get to that point, so just giving it to a friend or a family member so that you can't use it may be good enough. Another thing you want to do when setting up your credit card payments and your debt repayments is to automate it. One way I was able to automate paying back my debt was actually depositing around $1,100 per pay period, so basically $2,200 a month in my parents' savings account. And the reason why I did this is, number one, my parents paid off part of the credit card debt. It's not like they paid it off for me. This is not like one of those videos where it's like step 1 to becoming successful, cold showers, step 2 meditate, step 3 have really rich parents. The point being is my parents paid for a part of my debt, but I still have to pay them back. And the way I was paying them back is by automatically putting money from my paycheck into their account, so I could never ever see that money and I wouldn't be tempted to spend that money. So as much as you can really automate the payments and set aside amount for paying back your credit card debt, that'll make your life a lot easier, and it also will remove the temptation to spend that money on getting into even more debt potentially. You probably already know this, but there are 2 methods to paying back your credit card debt. There's called the debt avalanche method and the debt snowball method. I think this is popularized by Dave Ramsey again, but the debt avalanche method is paying back the credit card with the highest interest rate. Mathematically, this makes the most sense because if you're not paying off the credit card with the highest interest rate, you're going to accrue more interest in the long run. However, there's another method called the debt snowball method, which focuses on paying down the balance of the credit card with the lowest balance. And the reason behind this is, even though mathematically it doesn't make sense, it's psychological, because the more you see your debt being reduced, the more you start seeing progress in paying back your debt, the more likely you are to continue with paying back the debt. This method actually really worked for me. I tried the debt avalanche method at first, but my balances were so high that it felt like I wasn't even making a debt with all the repayments that I was, paying back. So eventually it became very demoralizing, but by focusing on the credit card with the lowest balance, I actually felt, I wouldn't say inspired. Inspired? Really? I don't know. I actually felt more motivated to continue paying back my debt. So in this case, the answer for you as to which one to use is whatever makes it easier for you to continue with paying back your debt and whatever motivates you more. All right, the next 2 tips are going to be practical tips on focusing on reducing your interest rate. I gotta tell you, when I was paying back my credit card debt, the amount of money I was paying in interest was killing me. I feel like I must have paid over hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in interest. And I remember being really angry during that time in my life because it just felt like I couldn't get ahead of the credit card debt due to the interest rates and how predatory credit card companies are. Anyways, here are ways you can lower your interest rates. Number 1 is to find a balance transfer card. A lot of balance transfer cards will basically allow you to do a balance transfer fee of, it's usually around 3% when I was, calculating this. And once you do that, usually the first year, there is no interest on the card, so you can transfer your balance from one card to the other. There's a 3% transaction fee based on the balance that was transferred, but for the first year, you don't have any interest on that card. And this helps you kind of get ahead of the interest rates. Now, this is a personal decision. You really have to be really good with numbers. You have to take your balance, calculate the transaction fee or the balance transfer fee, usually again around 3%. You have to calculate the amount of money you save in interest and how much debt you plan to repay like every single month and every single year, and see if all those numbers combined together make sense in terms of doing a balance transfer. Because again, once your balance transfer grace period is up, usually it's a year where you're not paying any interest, you have to know what the interest rate is. And again, you have to basically take all these variables together to see if you will save money in the long run doing a balance transfer or not, based on how much you project to pay off in terms of your debt. Another really good way, although some people might feel very embarrassed about this way, to save money and to lower your interest rate is to get a loan from friends and family. Now, I know this, again, it can be a very touchy subject. For me personally, my parents were great because there was a point where, again, the interest rates were killing me and I felt super demoralized, and I had paid off half of the $44K in credit card debt, but I just felt like I was going to be stuck in the cycle for 3 to 4 more years based on my calculations. And my parents were really generous because they offered to pay off my remaining balance. And again, it's not like they're just going to pay it off and I didn't have to pay them back. I did have to pay them back. But the point being is it was basically a 0% interest loan. Having to pay back debt alone is pretty stressful, but when you try to pay back debt and you see how the interest rates are really killing your repayments, trust me, being able to have a 0% interest loan, that basically will take a lot of pressure off, because then you can actually just focus on paying back the balance or how much money you have to pay back versus having to worry about calculating the interest rates and all that stuff. So again, some of you might be not willing to do it, but I personally did it and it was really, really, really helpful. Alright, so there you all have it. How I had 44K in credit card debt and how I paid it off in 2 years using these methods. Hopefully this helped you out, and we'll see you in the next video.